Ya'ate, hello. Welcome to Real Native Roots, Untold Stories, a podcast by a Native woman with deep roots, hosted by yours truly, Vicky Katsuliboy Oldman. I am a lover of stories, a connector, and a holder of wisdom keepers. Each month, we will be connecting with our Native relatives and exploring what medicine our guests share and offer to us. Please join me on this uncharted journey to learn, connect, and reflect. Ayahat. Thank you. Welcome back to Real Native Roots, Untold Stories, and blessings to each and every one of you as we have stepped into the new year. Yes, before we go any further, I want to pause and have you take a deep breath with me. So let's take a deep inhale in, hold, exhale. Thank you. If you need another one, I welcome you to take another deep breath. So those of you that have been following me, welcome back. Those of you that are new, welcome. I usually start with my podcast and sharing with you what's going on in my world, whatever I'm learning. And then I also read a poem. This time, for this podcast only, I decided to do both in one. So I really felt like my learnings is somewhat of a poem. I'm not really a poet, but excuse me, I have the little tickle. Anyway, so I decided to merge my learning and have that also serve as a poem. And when I introduce our guest, I'm going to ask how that landed for her. Okay, here we go. First of all, this past year was hard. It was hard for a lot of folks. And so I really started to reflect about not only my personal journey, but also with my podcasting as I reflect this past year on the stories that were shared, the lessons that were carried, and the voices honored. I realized something about myself, something important. I really learned that I am worth time. I'm worth love, and I'm worth deep connection, spiritual connection, family connection, relationship, friendship, and even past love connection. I am worth it fully. And I believe that. I also learned that I can't dim my shine. I'm standing firmly in what I believe, speaking clearly and living honestly, not rigidity, it's truth. And I've also learned about patience in a different way, not the kind that asks me to disappear, but the kind that trusts things will arrive without me betraying myself. Sit with that one. I've also learned to soften my inner critic. Some of those limited beliefs, I've learned to soften that because we beat ourselves up. And I've learned that my so-called shortcomings, I don't see them as failures, but as teachings that I build upon. And I've had a lot of people tell me this that know me really well. And they say, Vicky, you love so deeply. And what I learned though is that I have to have limits, and that generosity without reciprocity leads to exhaustion. And I have to honor my own energy because that is an act of love. Yeah, that one was really hard. I've also learned that accountability and trust matter to me. Trust is a one core true value of mine. It's actually one of my first values. And so accountability and trust really matter to me. And that when truth is not honored, it must be named. And that boundaries are not walls, they are clarity. Boundaries are not walls, they are clarity about what is okay and what is not. I know that there's a lot that I've learned, and And I had to sit with it. And most of all, I've learned that caring for myself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually is not optional. It is not optional. It is foundational. Yeah, I need a breath there. A deep breath. I could just feel like my neck getting a little tight, but it's the truth. That's what I learned this past year. And that's my check in. Those are my personal learnings from 2025. So I give that to you as a gift, listeners, and I hope something lands for you. I also want to name something important as I look back this past year about my podcast journey. I noticed that I didn't do 12 episodes, I released 8, and that's honest. Yes, 8. And what I learned is that this year was really asking me to listen more than producing and really looking at discernment more than output. And that all the voices that came through this past year, they came with intentionality, with real intention. And that this past year, the conversations I noticed really circled around sovereignty, not as a slogan, but more like a lived practice, and how we choose, how we lead, how we stay in leadership, in relationship with ourselves, with our culture, and with the communities that we need to do that without burning out. And again, I heard over and over that, which I think is a beautiful thing, that culture is not frozen in time. It moves, it adapts, and it shows up in fashion and in leadership and in water and on the road, just the smallest teachings keeping us to move forward. And that I also learned, I appreciate a lot of the guests just naming about that our body knows, and that our ancestors knew, and that our nervous system remembers. And so hopefully you all get to slow down enough to listen. And I also just want to name that this podcast is because of that, is listening. And it's really because of you tuning in. You're a part of the circle. You are the circle. And that this is not a stage. I'm just really grateful for those of you who have stayed, who paused, who returned, and really maybe you found this by accident. And I don't believe in accidents, so you found what you needed to when listening to some of these episodes. So this year is not really, I mean, it's a reflection, but I just want to name that being present in the movement and just kind of going with it. So it's taught me a lot. And I'm just so thankful that people are generous about their time and to share their wisdom with us. All right. So let's begin. Let me introduce you to my friend, my sister. I was so excited that she said yes for this year. So those of you that are new, usually the first year of the podcast, I always do like a reflection of last year, but I try to bring a listener. I want a listener to join me and recap what we learned. And so I thought she would be fabulous. And so my friend Tara Denetsosie-Lovato, I think I said that. She can correct me when she comes on. She isn't just a listener. She's been a part of the podcast family. Actually, a couple of years ago, she came on with a group of other women, and I believe that episode was called "It's All About Love," and it was a really fun conversation because we talked about jewelry, we talked about food, we talked about first love, and it was so much fun. And how I met Tara actually was through a mutual friend. And we met at a winery of all places. And it was one of those nights where my pod, my friends, and then my other friend had her pod. And we just so happened to all meet up. And next thing you know, you have like 7, 8 Native women all at one place laughing and just tearing it up. So, and after that, our relationship blossomed into a beautiful friendship. And I appreciate her so much because she's deeply grounded. That's what I like about her. And that's what I want more of, is friends and people who are grounded and know who they are. And that I can tell you, Tara knows who she is. She's smart and she's gorgeous and beautiful, and she really carries love too. She's rooted in her family, her community, and her culture. She's sharp, and professionally, she's a numbers gal. She works with tribes and large organizations on audits, financial analysis, long-term financial management. Not my lane, but that's what she does. So not only does she understand systems, but she doesn't forget the people whose systems are meant to serve. So she's a mom, a sister, an auntie, a wife, and just an all around amazing woman. Without further ado, I'm just so thankful she said yes. I would love for Tara to bring her voice in and welcome the listeners. And if you can just share a little bit about yourself, please bring your voice in.
Hi, Vicky.
Hello.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that very, very nice introduction. It's funny to hear that about yourself because, you don't always sometimes see yourself in that light, but it's really nice to hear because kind of pricks you up a little bit and you're like, okay, that's nice. So thank you. Yeah. As Vicky mentioned, I am part of her pod now, one of her sisters. Like Vicky had said, she's so thankful that we all met and her friends are now my friends and my friends are now her friends. So it kind of extended like that whole native sisterhood and even like aunties, the auntyhood is really it's something I feel like has taken on a life of its own in native communities is aunties, the word aunties. But we could go on that subject for a while, which I won't. But
We got to claim that. You know what we got to do? We got to create like a hoodie that says anti-hood, part of the anti-hood.
that would be the cutest hoodie, is right. I would wear that with pride for sure. I have a little funny story about that, but I won't share it right now. I'll introduce and then we can go on into storyhood and everything else. But yes, as Vicky said, I am Tara Denetsosie-Lovato. She a maide jinin shia. Twada chikni bashichin. Ta baha e dashiche. Ta chikni e dashinella. Mle East Yashlana is where I'm from, which is between Chinle and Many Farms, Arizona. It's called Valley Store, and it means little trees because we used to, before the water got cut off in Chinle, we used to have little fruit trees that grew down in our pastures down there. So that's why they call it Isyashlana, which is little trees. But those are no longer there, unfortunately. It's a sadness that happens all across native reservations. But besides that, my father is A. Louis Denetsosie. He is from Maitwo, which is Coyote Springs. My mom is no longer with us, but her name was Anita Pete Denetsosie, and she was from Beshbitwo, Arizona. And so, yes, I am happy to be here, and thank you for having me on your show, Vicky.
I want to circle back about the little trees, but before that, how did my update and poem land for you? Was there anything that you took away from that? I always like to ask folks what they thought of the poem.
Oh yes. Oh gosh. It landed all. It hit a lot of good spots and sensitive spots. I think your words on trust and truth being your one of your core principles. Yes, I think that it's easy to say that, but really hard to actually live by it. I think we're tested in that area every day, and that part really, really touched a nerve, if I could say. I loved how you said that when truth is honored, that is a really that it moves mountains when truth is honored. Sometimes, unfortunately, almost surprised that it happens. So it's really strange that I don't want to say that truth is not always honored, but yes, that part really also struck a chord with me. Oh, and I like how you said, and you and I had spoke about this before about giving ourselves too much.
Yeah.
Needing to kind of step back and say, okay, I need to say no on some things because I just can't. I would love to do all of these things, but I have to focus on the self care that you had mentioned and focus on the things that are really important to me. And so, yeah, I think that is just so amazingly true. So, yes, thank you for all of you know, the eye-opening subjects that you brought to the table today.
I feel like the more that we have conversations about whatever learnings, it helps people to be more vulnerable and open. And I feel like when I was growing up, a lot of times I would hear specific people, not even just like relatives, but like colleagues or people that I know, like, you're not supposed to talk about those things. And now that I'm older, I'm like, why not? And I
Right.
think that's why we hold so much and suppress a lot is that we need to release. We need to talk about it. And what does this mean? What is the learning? So thank you for sharing and sharing what was hitting you, what was landing for you for sure. So
Yes, yes. It's good to hear and good to talk about it, like you said.
we need more anti-hood conversations.
We do, and laughs for sure. That's the best medicine.
Um, so I was really curious. I know I'm like kind of all over the place, but that's okay because we're just having a conversation. But I was curious when you were talking about the little trees and you had said when they cut off the water, what what happened there? Like what did it look like before? And then yeah.
Oh, yes. So, the wash that runs from San Juan River, or the water that used to come from the San Juan River would come down all the way to many farms, and then it would obviously there's a huge wash that goes between many farms and Chinle and then goes to Canyon de Chelly. So that was the route that the water used to go. And once the water rights, I don't know if we can call it rights, were settled, the water was limited to a small, tiny little pond, lake. They call it Many Farms Lake, but really it just looks like a big pond. And that's the water that supplies all of Many Farms, Chinle Valley, and Nazlini going all the way down that way nowadays. So that limited the old water irrigation that my Nali lady used to use in her valley, or sorry, her cornfield. So they had these little canal systems that went off the big wash, the actual
Mhm.
water that ran through there, and then that canal system would funnel into our cornfields and all of our pastures there. And so
Mhm.
we used to bring all of our animals down from the winter camp to the summer camp down there and let them graze down there with all of the moisture or all of the grass that grew from the moisture. And my Nali man used to grow and harvest hay, and he would sell this to the community. He was one of the only men in the community who actually had a hay baler, which was a big Clydesdale horse with a wagon, and he would bale his own hay, and then he would sell it to the community or trade back then, I believe, to the community. And so, and also, as I had mentioned, we used to have small fruit trees, so we would grow all the traditional crops: the peaches, the nectarines, the squash, the corn, all of our older crops, beans, potatoes that we would grow. So now, since the water doesn't flow through there, the cornfield is just relying on just the natural rain. But what's happening now is the erosion has started to take place underneath the cornfield. That there's huge sinkholes. So it's pretty scary going through there. You have to be really careful if you're walking through. It's a very large cornfield as well.
Mhm.
I think I said it's about maybe 10 acres. So it's maybe 8 acres,
Wow.
but there's sinkholes now happening there just due to erosion and drought. So, but yes, that's the story of the little trees out in Chinle.
There's probably no more little trees now.
No, there's no more little trees. We can't grow anything. Sometimes we dream about growing hay for all of our animals, but we're like, will it be an effort that we will be able to get water for, or at least rain? So yeah.
It's really sad. Last night I was watching Manifesto, I think what's Magnificent with Angelina Jolie in it. I don't know if you've
Oh
seen that.
yes.
But I
Yes.
guess I thought it was the first one, and I watched it was the second one. I'm like, None of this looks familiar." And there was the forest that she's in. It's like a beautiful ecosystem where it's in harmony in its own way. And so as you're telling that story, I thought, God, I wonder what it looked like before,
Oh.
you know?
Yes. Oh, it was probably so beautiful, and I can just imagine, bringing the animals down for the from the winter camp to the summer camp and letting them go down there, and then, we just had a nice way of naturally moving the animals around to make sure we didn't
Mhm.
overgraze, so we take them back up to the winter camp and, let them be up there for as long as they needed. So yes, yes, the way things worked just made sense.
I love when we connect when you talk about your family. And from what I get a sense is very immersed in the community. They're ranchers, they're planters. And one thing that I always loved to hear from you is your love for horses. And I would love for you to share a little bit of like, how did you become, you're a barrel racer, I think. I mean, you ride horses a lot and you guys go out and in the summertime and do your thing out there in the desert.
Yes.
Who introduced you to the horses that you just fell in love and tell us a little story because I see all your ribbons back there. I'm like, damn girl, check you out.
Yes. Oh, yes. Horses. Oh gosh, where do I start? Horse girl, big time. Native horse girl, I'll be proud to say. That's a
What does
saying.
that
And
mean?
so horse girl is like this theme amongst just I'd say maybe social media where girls kind of call themselves horse girls because it's almost like a horse girl nerd level where you're
Hmm.
just like with the horses all the time and they have all of their little quirks and all of their little likes and their little attitudes and their personalities and you basically just spend all of your time with horses, which is basically a horse girl. But I like to call myself, I guess, a native horse girl or woman. How I started writing was my dad, because my dad is a girl dad. Like I had mentioned, my mom had passed when I was very young. And as part of, I didn't realize it then, but as part of his way of us healing, he decided, okay, we rode horses from the very beginning. I think I started
Hmm.
at 4 years old. My dad brought me a horse that we called Comanche, which is a strange name for a horse, I know. But he was wild, and maybe that's why he was free and wild and beautiful. And I guess maybe we associated, like
Hmm.
that the tribe of Comanches, the people Comanche, to him. So I think that's why we called him Comanche. And I used to ride him, even though he was so wild. I would just get on him and just let him take off with me. I would even just jump off of him when he took off on me. Like he would just take off, and I
Wow.
would just jump off like nothing. And then I walk back home, and then he would be there at the corral waiting for me, and I'd be like, "Oh, this guy! I'll ride you again tomorrow." But
Mhm.
that's how I essentially started riding. And through the years, my dad would give me another horse. I had Baby Lucille. I had Golden. I had another horse I called Fashion, she was a very beautiful
Mhm.
paint. And then I was gifted more horses going down the line. I kind of stopped for a while when I left for Phoenix to go to school.
Mhm.
And I kind of went wild on the wild track down there at ASU. I was like, in ASU, the whole, I don't know what to call it. Like you get sucked into the whole Phoenix lifestyle and all the different natives that are there. And I kind of lost myself there for a little while. Eventually, my dad's kind of very lovingly invited me to start going back home again. And once I did, it was a whole different world because they gave me horses again. I had, at that time, we had 5 horses, and one I really connected with. His name was Catchy. And oh, he was such a good horse. He was amazing. Just moved with me like the way I would want to move with the horse. He was a cow horse, so all we would do is ranch and ride and ranch and ride. I would ride him for like 5 hours and one day just rounding up the cattle out on our land where we have they're sparse. I mean, they're very spread out. So rounding up could take 4 to 5 hours, which was a lot of work, but it was awesome. But Ketchy got hit by a vehicle. In the
Mm.
res, we don't have the best fencing system. So he got hit and he died. All of them got hit, which was really strange. We had 5 4 got hit and killed, and we ended up with 1. So she
Mm.
had a baby, which we started training. And then I decided, I was like, well, this last 2 years ago, 2024, I started talking about buying another horse and kind of told my dad. I kind of put it out there, like you said, with the studio and
Yeah.
how you're putting it out there. And I did. I started talking about it. And it's so funny how some things just manifest
Mhm.
because the next thing you know, I was on watching some livestock auction in Utah, Logan, Utah, and ended up bidding on a horse and won him, which was like the craziest thing. I was totally unprepared for it. And his name is Bo. I call him Bo. And he's registered quarter horse. He's a big, beautiful red sorrel horse, and he has just the funniest personality. So I ride him quite a bit. After this, my uncle gifted me his horse, and he's a gray gelding quarter horse as well. So I have two main guys, Bo and sorry, Comet is his name. And those are the two that I barrel race, and I take them all over the place. New Mexico, we go to Socorro, we ride in Grants, we go anywhere around Albuquerque. So yes, that's kind of the whole journey. We do horse shows as well. Do like I said, barrel racing and some poles. So yes, that's kind of
Mhm.
how this whole horse journey has I guess has been going so far.
What would you say about your relationship with these horses? Because you've known them since you were little, 4 to where you're at now. What do you feel like the horses teach you about
Mm.
presence, about trust, about boundaries?
Oh gosh. Since I was little, and I don't know if this is just I don't think it's just a Navajo thing, obviously. The
Mhm.
spiritual connection that natives have with horses. My dads and my uncles, who are my main teachers, they always told me, the horses have really strong medicine.
Mm,
So, of course, this is just everybody says this is that the horses know exactly how you feel as soon as you are in their presence. And if you're nervous to ride, they're going to be nervous to ride as well. If you're anxious or if you're happy and especially calm. If you're calm, smooth and calm, oh, they will reciprocate that feeling to you. And this is going back to the truth to your poem. It's just complete truth. That's what they are. Whatever
mm.
you're feeling, they're going to reflect that 100%. And they're all true. I mean, if you're treating them bad, oh, they are going to treat you bad. Um, talk about reciprocation. If you treat them good and you talk to them good, and you tell them, you talk to them, and you say, okay, we're going to do this today. We're going to go to Bernalillo. We're going to ride over there. It's going to be a lot of noise. There's going to be some traffic, dogs, people, and they hear it. They know. And when they get there, they're like, okay, I'm ready for this and I can handle this. And as long as mom is here with me and she's calm, I'm calm. So, yes. And it also goes back to accountability. I mean, they are 100% relying on you to take care of them. So, I think it's just some of the best lessons that you could be blessed to have because you have to take care of them and be truthful, love them, and be there for them as much as you can. So, yes, and of course, one of the most amazing things my uncle told me after you get done writing was, he says, when you ride really hard and you both work really well together as a team, and they're sweating and you're sweating, he says, you get off, and of course you cool them down, then you get off and you thank them. He goes, you take the sweat or their jet, their spit, and you
Mhm.
wipe it on yourself. You bless yourself with it. That
Mhm.
way you're not sore. He says you won't get as sore from riding. And then you always tell him, thank you. Thank you, Shalene, my horse, for helping me and working with me today. And he says you always thank them. And that's one of the things I always thought was so beautiful about
Mm.
his teachings with the horses. That's what I take away from them and their love for me and my love for them.
I can feel it. I can really feel it. It makes me wonder about personalities. And, Bo, what's his personality? Is it
Bo, yes. Bo is, oh gosh, his personality is, I'm just going to go socialize. I'm going to go to the rodeo and I'm going to look at everyone and I'm going to go and I want everyone to pet me. I want everyone to look at me, but I don't want to do any work. I just want to be pretty and stand here and I'm gonna butt when mom wants to barrel race me. So I took him to a barrel race in the midsummer, and they do these exhibitions beforehand where you get to run the pattern. And I warm him up, get him into the arena, start the pattern, and he just on the very last barrel, he just decides I'm gonna bolt and I'm gonna buck at the same time. And I'm used to him doing this, so I'm always ready for him to like do something rambunctious like that. And yeah, sure enough, he starts bucking on the way, and everybody was laughing. Everybody's like hooting and hollering because they were saying it was a like a little mini bronc with a bronc rider there for a second. And since I was ready, of course, I hung on and I was fine. And I just, ran him afterwards to let him know, like, no, this is not the time. You're not supposed to be doing this with us. But that's Bo. And my other main guy, Comet, is 24, and he is all business. This guy is a born and bred, very famous. He comes from a famous line of quarter horses. He comes from the Dock Bar line, which is one of the very first, very famous quarter horses. And he is very strong willed, not for an amateur rider at all. And he wants to go. Like he's very smart. He just knows what his job is. But you have to be really confident in yourself because he's extremely confident. So you got to match it. Otherwise, he's going to go right and you're going to go off to the left and on the ground. So you got
Wow.
to be very careful with him. But he is like, he's all business and he knows what he's doing. So yeah, yeah, that's comment for you.
Thank you for telling us a little bit about their personality because it reminds me of just people we deal with at work, people in our family. Everybody has their characteristic flaws or characteristic gifts. How do you feel the horses have really helped you to move through life and or how to make decisions, especially when you're bell racing in that bronco ride?
Oh gosh. Okay. Preparation. So obviously, I didn't prepare Bo well enough that day, and I knew it that day when he bucked in the arena because I didn't. We were rushing
Uh-huh.
and we were late to the barrel race, and I warmed him up, but I didn't warm him up enough. I have to remember he takes more time. I have to warm him up more. So that's probably one of the biggest takeaways I would say is, and a lot of people do say this in many, I think, hobbies or not even hobbies, jobs that we do. Preparation, right, is key to success. And so I think that's one of the main things. Comet, if I prepare him right, his mind is locked in, and he doesn't need much preparation. But he's 14 years older than Bo, so he's a lot more mature, and so he just knows what he's doing. If I prepare him right, and if I take my time and not rush and be on time or early, that's those are probably some of the takeaways I have right now. Before, a lot of it was training and learning to trust and a lot of groundwork, which I think is a lot of things in life too that goes back to preparation. Doing the groundwork, people say. I finally get it. I finally, oh yeah, you got to do the groundwork, lay that foundation, because if you don't lay that foundation, things just won't work going forward. So, yes.
Mm, those are really good learnings from them. Foundation, you got to have a strong foundation in anything that you do, relationships, work, family. If that is faulty, it's going to crack at some point, right? And
Mhm.
then preparation is so key. Even like for this podcast, I spend time preparing and making sure I get things ready. And people are like, oh, it must be easy. Like, there's a lot of time that goes into the 1 hour, and then there's the post, which takes double the time. And so, anyway, yes, thank you for sharing those learnings.
Yes.
We
Yes.
could talk horses in this whole episode. In fact,
We
we
could.
could do that sometime this year, bring you back and just talk about horses. My dad loves horses, and I think in one of the podcasts, you may or may not remember, it was a couple of years ago. It was right after my divorce, and I was just not in a good place. Anyway, every time I go see my dad, I always go to the horse corral and I go say hi to all the horses
Mm,
and talk to them. And Blackie, he's a black stallion. He's kind of his personality is kind of like he knows he's it. He knows he's the guy. And my I
mhm.
always ask Dad, like, how's Blackie? He goes, Blackie's just being an ass, is what he would say. And he's high maintenance. Anyway, he would never come to me. I would always try to go to him. He would never come to me until I was broken, when I was like in a really hard place. And one morning I got up early and I went and walked to the horse corral and I stood there. I'm about to cry. Every time I think about this moment, I always about to cry.
Mm,
He
mm,
came up to me and he put his nose and he just stayed with me. Oh,
mhm.
so they are medicine and they are healing.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
They are a reflection of ourselves in many ways. So yes.
Yeah. He knew what I where I was and he knew what I needed. And now he'll come up to me. I think he knows like she's done her work. She's in a good place now.
Yeah, I can
Well,
be fabulous over here by myself now.
well, speaking of reflection and going down memory lane, let's do a recap of 2025. It's funny when I was prepared, I thought I only did four. I thought I only did four. And I'm like, really? I know it was a hard year, but I'm like, well, it is what it is. Then I went
Mhm.
back. I'm like, no, I did eight. I was like, okay, even though it was a hard year, I still did my thing. And so we did eight. We did podcasts with Gary Farmer,
Mhm.
Rediscovering Yourself, an ongoing journey. We did one with my aunt, Claudia, Don't Hold a Grudge, Anti Wisdom. We did one with Jaden, Strumming to Success, a Dana guitarist journey. We did one with Jacqueline Schaefer, Whales, Threads, and Ancestors. We did one with Shoshone, From Ceremony to Catwalk. We did one with Jack, The Beans of Destinies and Other
Mm.
Lessons. And then we did one with Tina, Harley, Canoes, and Jingle Dresses. And then we also did one with Dar Star. We own the table, Dar on sovereignty, truth, and unity. So those are the eight. Where do you want to go first? And really just share with listeners what you really took away from that particular podcast, what you appreciate about that listener. However you want to go, you decide which one you want to start off with, and we'll just tag team after that.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. I think we should start with Jaden.
Okay.
I yes, I met Jaden. I was lucky enough to join Vicky and some other auntie friends to watch Jaden perform in here in Albuquerque. I've seen him twice actually, which is really nice. Oh, the gift. Yeah, he is so gifted. And talk about a really kind, just a really calm feeling. The soul, the vibe that he gives off is really such a kind and calm vibe for such
Mhm.
a young man. I think 25 years old is when he did the podcast with you. So he may be 26 now, but still, come on, 26, and what he's done so far, and even what he knew at a very young age. He mentions what he wanted to do. I mean, picking up a guitar at 13, knowing that this is what he's going to want to do, and the courage for him to actually make it happen, saying, okay, mom and dad, I'm not going to go to school, I'm going to pursue this dream over here. Then that was just like, to me at 26, I was still lost in La La Land, or in Phoenix land, doing no good. So I feel like I was so impressed with that Jaden just knew. And also, I was very impressed that he knew who Leonard Peltier is, which at a very young age, a lot of people don't know who Leonard Peltier is. And he said that that's someone that he would want to meet and have a conversation with. So, yeah, just
Yeah.
just really, really struck me.
I ditto all of that. He still blows me away in how respectful he is. And I love that you described his energy is very calm. And one thing that I really took away from him is when he named what he wanted, you know, so the guitar playing was not just a hobby. He's like, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to make it happen. And it takes courage to do what you really want to do and people see it as a hobby versus something that can sustain you. So, like for me, it's like I want to do podcasting full time, and then I'm like, can I get away from my job that pays me? And so, for him to just do it and have complete faith, that was a big takeaway for me.
Yes,
So,
I agree. And I think this goes back to Jaden being lucky enough to know at such a young age because he didn't go into, mid later in life and then deciding, okay, I want to do something else now, which makes it really hard because you have obligations and you have, family that depend on you. And it's like, okay, this is going to be a really big pivot for me if I want to pursue something else. So Jaden was lucky to know, gosh, that I'm going to pursue my music career. And one of the things I was surprised about was that he was going to move to Minneapolis and pursue his career there, but then he decided to stay in Albuquerque. But I understand he had his music business going here with his students. He had won a prestigious award for the city of Rio Rancho as an artist.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, in some ways, I think I understand him staying because the community was already really embracing him. A very impressive young man who I definitely will be looking out for as one of our young native artists up and coming. So it's exciting to see what he's going to do next.
I know, I know. Well, we're gonna go from Jaden, we're gonna go to the other extreme of like age spectrum. I want to bring up Gary Farmer. So I will tell you, I was reaching out to people I knew who knew him. And I said, hey, do you think you could do a warm introduction? And nobody did anything. So I'm like, well, you're just going to have to go and go, girl. So I emailed him and told him who I was and that I had a podcast. And I said, I would love to have you on. And I remember so well, I was sitting at the table and I was checking my email and I saw, and like literally, he had emailed within 10 minutes. And he said, I
Wow.
would love to. And I screamed. I was like, oh my God. So I was excited. And,
Oh,
but I do want to name when I interviewed him, he was healing. He was healing from some
mm.
work, but he was definitely a basket full of wit, wisdom, and wandering. I was like, I felt like I was chasing a goat. he, he just story tell after like he'd say one thing and then it went to another and then went to another and he knew that he'd say I know I need to slow down or stop and but it was one that I had to listen a lot and like take notes at the beginning. It made me laugh because I told him this is the flow, and after I read
Mhm.
the poem he says golf clap. That just cracked me up because it made me think about because he did that throughout the podcast, but it made me really realize that sometimes you don't need to say a lot. He just said golf clap and that was enough. It wasn't a joke, but it was like a punctuation, like an exclamation mark, right? And I feel like this is how he is. It's like a refusal to overperform, right? It just really brought that. And so he was one that kept me on my toes. And so there was that made me laugh. And then the other thing that really stood out for me was when I asked, like, what should we be worried about? Should we be worried? And he says, I am not worried about our people at all. And that still sits with me, especially during times like this. I actually think about what Gary has, when he said, he says, we've been through a lot, we've done a lot, and our Native people don't need to worry. He just was like, we're stronger than we've ever been. So I don't know what your thoughts are, if any you want to build on that, but yeah, I had to bring him
Yes.
up.
Yes. I did actually highlight that when he had said that he is not worried about our people at all. And I was just, yeah, that really moved me. I was just like, wow. He said, we are getting stronger as we are growing and we're Native people. As Native peoples, we're learning more about the Western way of doing business. And what makes me think about that is how a lot of our peoples are buying land back. So we're not only do we have our reservations, but we're also expanding our reservations and turning it into trust land by buying more land. So, that kind of just like I immediately thought about that when he said that.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not worried about Native people. You can argue a lot about that. There's a lot of things that you can go back and forth on his statement there, but I'm sure there's a lot of pros and cons that we could go over on that. But it was really inspiring just to hear him say that. Yes, and it's so funny how you said that Gary was everywhere. It just reminded me that Gary is a true artist, and I think of
Mm.
an artist as left-brained and the mind. He is almost like a jazz like song to me. Like he just goes from one scat to another scat to another scat. And you're like, okay, is this a new song or are we still on the old song? And where is Gary going with this story? But yeah, he was so funny when he said that he was the king of single mothers. It's like, I could just picture him like on his reservation, just like hitting on the single mom, and he's just with her. He's like stepdad, and I don't know. I can just picture him at a powwow with with Auntie and making the rounds there. But I think he was so funny. Also, he was very emotional, and this might be back to what you were saying about his healing when he talked about his mother and really growing up. He was very emotional about all of the his grandmother, his mother, his father, and I get it because when I do think about growing up, I do get emotional and think about my grandma, and I'm like, oh, that's some really strong memory. And
Yeah.
so, yes, I totally identified with him on his emotions tied back to the land and his family. So that part was really beautiful. A little criticism I have about Gary was he had said that he was talking about, I think, I'm not sure if it was social media or broadcasting, possibly. And he had said that the Navajo Nation, we have a radio station called
Mhm.
KTNN.
Yeah.
And it's in the mid 80s, the Navajo Nation decided we're going to start a radio station. And it's an AM radio station, and it's kind of like the lifeline of our reservation. And I
Mhm.
remember it as a very young girl listening to KTNN on the radio every morning when I'd wake up, and you'd hear all the announcements and all the important things, and all the deaths, obituaries, or even the ceremonies, which was really cool because Navajo is pretty big. We didn't know by word of mouth ceremonies that were happening in Shiprock if you're in Chinle and vice
Yeah.
versa. So he had said that KTNN only plays country. And right away I was like, no, they don't. They don't only play country. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe the
They
hour that
play
you were listening. Hey.
I know it was country hour. It was Friday oldies. I don't know, but
Friday
they play
oldies.
all kinds of music, powwow to Navajo songs, to Apache songs, Hopi songs. They play country as well, but and one of the most I think amazing parts of it is they still broadcast in Navajo. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I was like, I kind of like put up my walls right away when Gary said that, and I was like, no, I'm gonna have Gary listen to KTNN more so he can.
Oh, well, I appreciate him saying yes. And it was so beautiful afterwards. And I sent him the link and everything. And then he followed up. He actually followed up with an email and he told me, and I really take this humbly and I receive this lovingly because he's in the industry. He's in the industry for a long time, media, movies, podcast. Oh, he's out there. And he had told me, you're very professional. You made me feel seen. And I really respect how you do this. He goes, a lot of people just wing it. A lot of people don't do their homework and research. And I can tell you did. So when he said
Mhm.
that, I was like, oh, I wish I had a Google, you know how they do reviews.
Oh yes.
I would definitely put that on the review. But
Oh
anyway,
yes.
that was very sweet. So yeah, Gary, thank you. You're a funny man.
It's
All right.
funny.
So who do you want to go to next?
Let's touch back on Jack
Okay.
Soto. Oh gosh, he was so funny, and his laugh.
Oh my God, it's so contagious.
It's the most unique, contagious laugh I think I've ever heard. But oh my gosh, he just made me. I was like smiling and laughing through that whole podcast. But sometimes kind of reminds me of, I don't, and maybe it's not a good analogy, but like the smiling clown, because he was really honest with a lot of his family history. And I really appreciated his honesty because it is hard to be completely candid about your family history and flaws.
Hmm.
So that I was extremely, I think I was very tied to that podcast because of it. So yes, I think that was just amazing that he was able to share that with us. And I loved how he mentioned his dad a lot. There's a kind of a rocky relationship there, but at the very end, he said that he was just he wishes he had spent more time with his dad. Overall, through the whole course of this up and down relationship, that was he still wishes he had spent more time with his dad. So yeah, I was just blown away by it.
Yeah, I remember it's interesting with majority of the podcast, a lot of folks have that moment where they're about to cry or they're holding it in. So it was very tender.
Mhm.
And I appreciated him mentioning the pause. Like he really sat with, we need to be sitting, yeah, in the pause. Cause it's like that pause is like that space in between moments, right? And even he talked a little bit about even identities and decisions. And when he had said that, I was like, yeah, because that's to me is when the work starts to happen. Cause you're like,
Mm.
and it's uncomfortable because you're not doing, you're like sitting and you're like,
Yes. It's really hard to do that pause as well. I remember his story about that. It was an argument, and he's like, "I need to pause now, and I need to go away for a little while, and we'll come back. It's not doesn't mean that I'm going to forget this or anything, but you know." And like you said, do the work during that pause, processing things. That's really hard to do. I think, especially for me, because a lot of times I see things as such a finality. Like I want things to be like with that exclamation point or even the period at the end of a sentence to say like, okay, we're done with this issue now. Let's stop this issue. But no, you can't always do that.
yeah.
So you're right. I really appreciated him recognizing a pause because things can't always just be punctuated like that.
Yeah. The other thing that he said to me that, to us as listeners, and I really loved it, is when he said, you know, releasing the pressure of always being good. Right? It's that perfectionism, right? And he tied it to the trickster.
Yeah.
And he was saying you can be wise and you can be messy, right? And it's kind of what the message is, loving and flawed. It's like a reminder there's this colonial kind of viewpoint of what perfection looks like. And our
Mm.
ancestors always said there's no such thing, there's no such
Mhm.
thing. But he
Mhm.
also just named that, that he has released the power of always being good, because
Wow.
instead
Yes.
of, and to live fully, right? To live fully with complexity.
Yes, I can see him definitely living fully. One of the things that really made me laugh, and he made me laugh with what he said, but I saw it as one of the overall themes that your other podcast guests of 25 had shared. But he had said that, he's getting to the point in his life where he's just going to move back to the res and find a really old beat up trailer to live in with an old truck and he's just going to live off the land and it just made me laugh and and he's like I think it's getting older that people start to want to do that because I did hear your other guests say the same thing and or along the same lines and it's true. It's true. You lay there at night and think like, oh, I just want to be on the res and at home and waking up with all that just being home feeling, home. And yes, so I really love his analogy on
Well, thank you, Jack. We appreciate you.
yes,
Um,
thank you.
I want to go to Shoshone. So I I was blown away, honestly. I didn't know what to expect. And I kind of did, but I didn't. And I was like, whoa, this woman is like ceremony all over, literally. And she said so many things. Like, I was so happy when I asked about her name. She told us about, I was like, what, And then I think for me, for her was when she was talking about learning the art of creating these beautiful pieces and that these pieces have a spirit. And I've always heard that in our way too, like, jewelry, the things that we have, they're alive, they have a spirit. And she confirmed a different tribe from another part of the United States, right? And she named that. She named whatever we're making and whatever we're creating, it has its own spirit. It's its own living being. And she mentioned about like the process of getting to know the pieces and how it takes shape. And I just thought that was so beautiful and powerful. And I know a lot of artists that do that in their pottery and their rug weaving and their jewelry making. They are connected with it and they see the spirit of it. That really just, it really landed well with me.
Going on that, you know how if you are given jewelry or you get new jewelry, a lot of times we have it blessed when we have some of our ceremonies. We take it and we have it blessed by the ceremony, basically. And it just gives that piece of jewelry more power to, I guess, I'm not sure, to navigate, help you navigate through life in good ways and help you be strong for when times are hard. So, yes, she had such a good way of explaining that when she talked about the strength that the regalia has. One of the things going back to her designs, and I found this really interesting, was her, I never thought about it. She had mentioned how she makes traditional tops for her people and they have the ceremonies in it. And it's such an honor that, they ask her, they started asking her at a very young age. And that's something that you don't say no to. You're asked
Mhm,
something that big of an honor and you don't say no. On top of that, she had mentioned that their traditional regalia, the tops are were traditionally backless. And
mhm,
she said, it really struck me that she said that she was kind of sad that the younger girls were very modest and they didn't want that open back anymore. They wanted to cover up. And she said it just, it was the real difference between traditional and Western culture that they were kind of, I don't think she said ashamed, but they were, shy about showing that much body. And she was said it was kind of sad that they had to change the traditional regalia to make it more modest. And I was like, oh, that's so true. I never thought about that. And you had even mentioned in that podcast that a lot of ceremonies do require, us to basically shed our outer layer because
yeah,
we need to be covered with either herbs or we need,
mhm.
really have the prayer take its true hold on us or something like that. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting that she said that because I've never heard anyone else say that. So
I'm so glad you brought that up because, again, it just talks about influences other from other cultures and how they have set certain beliefs, to be ashamed of our body, that our body needs to look a certain way. And you think about way, way, way back then, I'm sure, I mean, they probably didn't even think about that. It's just, this is what you do, and this is spiritual, right? This is ceremonial. And now we cover up and I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I body shame myself. I'm like, ah, I need to lose weight here, I need to do this, and I'm really coming into myself where I'm like, you know what, I love all my voluptuous self, and it doesn't mean I just get lazy and sit on the couch with a bag of Cheetos. I'm not saying that to anybody because I do love my Cheetos. Anyway, again, this is talking about the different belief systems that influence how we see ourselves.
yes, this can go on for a while because even our how we wear our hair traditionally, we many cultures, our native cultures have their own style of wearing hair, and a lot of that now is coming back, which is so awesome to see our younger ones wearing the tsiye, the Navajo bun,
Mhm.
or deciding to go back to their braids for the northern tribes. I don't know if I don't think they ever went away from the braids, but definitely being more present on social media about, the meaning of the hair. Just yeah, you could go on and into hair and clothing and moccasins and the meaning of a lot of the jewelry that we wear, feathers, and yeah, it's a whole nother podcast that could probably be, uh, well, you're the expert on that, but
I don't know if I'm an expert, but I'm learning. We could go on and on, but I know we have other guests.
Mhm.
And she said so much. And so, anyway, who do you want to go to next?
Let's go to Jackie, who is Jacqueline.
Okay.
Because we're in the fashion regalia industry. She also is a designer, so I really appreciated that you had two designers last year, and I think it ties into this whole kind of movement that's building with native fashion. We have like in Santa Fe and in other parts of the country, Michigan. I know, I think the Crow Fair had a fashion show. I'm sure a lot of the
Yeah.
larger tribal fairs have fashion shows, but it's really taking on its own movement. So I really appreciated the two designers and their thought process behind what they design. So yes, so, Jackie was really interesting, and oh my goodness, she is Alaskan from a whaling family, which I was just totally like, this is like just really mind blowing. She was very traditional.
So I sat on a board with her for a while, and I only think I had 2 or 3 meetings, and then I turned out. And then those time frame, I was like, "Oh my god, I gotta have this woman on my podcast." And I literally was just blown away because I appreciated her when she was talking about, I think she had said like 80% of her food still comes from
Mhm.
air, land, and sea. I'm like, geez, I can't say 80% for me, that's for
Oh,
sure. And
oh,
I was just blown away. And then when she had talked about, I pulled it out of my notes, the bowhead whale is resistant to all cancer. So if we
yeah.
only ate traditional foods, how different our bodies would respond.
Yes, it could just you could just think about that and wonder, yeah, you're right. How different would your body respond, your activity, the way you think, because if we did harvest all of our own food, our activity increases by,
Mhm.
you know, two, threefold.
Yeah.
So yes, I was really stuck on because I stuck on her whaling stories, and how her name, I think it's her traditional name is she
Yeah.
calls the whales. I think that are able to call the
Mhm.
whales.
Yeah.
And I kind of have like my own little whaling story, not whaling, but my husband and I go down to Mexico every year for an annual golf tournament. He plays golf, and I just get to hang out. But one year, I really wanted to see if I could go see the whales. So I got on one of the, I think it's a tourist, yeah, a guided tour, and the tour guide was very candid with us in that, sometimes we'll see them, sometimes we won't, but we'll still do things that will make this an experience for everyone. So all of us were like, okay, being realistic about it. And we would see some like far off, and they would, blow the water up into from the ocean, and you could see their, I forget what they call that, but you could see all of their water, and then we'd get all excited. So we're like, okay, that's probably what we're gonna see. And so we start just cruising around, and all of a sudden we stop, and there's the guy, her helper starts calling the whales, and you can hear him slap the ocean. He's like slapping
Mhm.
it, and then he's making like a kissing sound. So he was calling the whales, and oh my goodness, Vicky, we had a family of, I think, about maybe 6 to 8 whales that came.
Oh my
They
gosh.
swam under the boat. They
Mm.
were all around, they were circling us, and they would, kind of jump up and flip their tail. And we got to, oh, it was amazing. Like just seeing them that close and how big they are. Cause oh, they were like bigger than the boat. And that was a big boat that we were on. I was like, oh my gosh, there's something that big going under us. Like all I think she had to do was just lift up, and she would definitely lift our boat up. But oh, it was definitely spiritual to me, and I was like crying when I saw them because that
Mm.
beauty and that power, and I guess they were curious about us too, and so they wanted to see, what we're doing. But it was so cute. I got home and I tell my dad about this, and then he's like, "Oh," he goes, "They probably wanted to see a native." They go,
That's right. I love that. It's so magical. Sounds very magical. And yeah, I'm not going to digress and tell you about this turtle story, but no. And what I loved about her bringing like the ancestral examples and then marrying it with science. I was like,
"Oh,
This woman's like smart. She's connecting those pieces together." And the
yes,
other thing that really, there were a lot of things that she had said, but the other thing that really spoke to me when she was talking about frequency, and she was talking about our language and about using our voice and that sound and like vibration and memory, like our native
oh,
genetics or body knows this, and that we need to practice saying the words because she says it's waking something up when you speak your language. And she said something like, say 3, 4 language, you'll notice and feel a difference, not because of it's because of the muscles in our mouth. Because she even said she was trying to say a word, or she said a word. She goes, "I don't think I can say that because my mouth is not used to moving in that
Mhm.
language." And I think she used the word was it aga, aga or something like that. It meant like happiness,
Oh,
and
yes.
so yeah. And then I was like, and there was a podcast guest I had, I think in my second year account. I just see her face. I think she's a podcaster now too.
Mm.
Anyway, she was talking and encouraging everyone she's young, to learn a native song and to speak more of your language, even if it's just you say hello, but to practice that because that's our mother language. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Oh my goodness. One of the things that she really, I guess, impressed on me was that I mentioned how she's so traditional, but she's also very spiritual. She has that I don't know if a lot of people have met people, other natives, where you just have they just have a spiritual light about them. Like they know how to just almost bring their medicine to you. And they're not like really a medicine man or a medicine woman, but they just have that strength. And that's what she reminded me of was her spirituality was really strong. And I'm thinking it goes back to her way of living and her really deep rooted values on the language and her food, the land. The other common theme, again, going back to Jack's moving home. Hers was all about being home, the language. And oh, she had also mentioned boarding school, but that's different. But yes, so that uh, really impressive. Yes, Jacqueline was, I think she was like, yes, I think she's super.
Let's talk about Tina. And I had titled that Harley's Canoe and Jingle Dress.
Yes.
I really enjoyed my conversation with her. She said a lot of things I thought that were really insightful, and maybe because of how I'm moving with her in real time right now is leadership.
Mm.
How she talked about leadership as relational, how it's slow and how it needs to be shared, because she was talking about not doing the work alone is what the
Mm.
canoe taught her, because she's learning how to be in a certain position in the canoe, and they're going to be going on a canoe journey, and we have to do this together, and it requires listening, it requires pacing, it requires knowing when to rest and also when to move together. And I was like, that is so beautiful, because that really is in line with relationships in general. Like when you're working in an organization, you need those things. When
Yes.
you're in a partnership, you need those things. When you're within your family dynamics, your friendship, listening, pacing, knowing when to rest, and how to move together. And so I felt like her canoe journey, learning at this moment, because they're going to be preparing next year, or is it this year? Yeah, we're in 2026. I just thought
Mhm.
it was so exciting, and that's one thing that I took away from her.
Yes. I mean, kudos to Tina for going out and doing what she believes in. I think she had mentioned she had just said, I think it's about doing what you want to do because she said she really appreciates people who walk the talk or who talk the walk, vice versa. I was like, wow, I love it when people say that. It just reminds me of our elders. And she had even mentioned that. She had said, she just really appreciates what our elders have done for us.
Right?
They were such strong people and they have done so much what they've lived through to for us to be here today and have the freedom of coming and going onto our reservation, the education that we're and the healthcare system that we're able to have. Like all of that is just amazing. I really love that she recognized that what the elders have done for us, and I know we all do in a way, but just saying it out loud is really beautiful.
Yeah.
And she had mentioned water, and this goes back to her canoeing and how she's doing the water walk. I think is it this year? That's what you were saying that she's doing this water walk across the country. And yeah, I was like, "What? Water walk? Like, I want to be a part of this walk." And This is her walk the talk story. But yes, oh, her values. I just love it. The canoe, the team, the family, the working together. And then on top of that, just respect for the water and how much it means to everyone.
She was and with all of that you said, it just made me think about one thing she had mentioned about free will and about how we still have agency and that because when she was talking about the prophecy of water, like
Mm,
some of her mentors and what they were saying, she basically was just naming that we have a lot of power and we have choice, especially now, right? Like the complexity and the uncertainty of how things have been really heavy lately. And so she really invites us when she shared those things, really invites us about what are we choosing to focus on?
yes.
And how
Yes.
am I participating in the future that's being made? And where can I act with faith instead of fear, right?
She had put the question out there about back to the scarcity or the water prophecy, and now water is becoming more scarce.
Hmm.
And I think she put the question out there to us, what are you going to do about it? And I was like, oh, and we can all say yes, or like I had mentioned in the beginning of this podcast about the water being depleted from our own community. What can we do about it? Stand up for it and be a voice to continue to advocate for our tribal water rights.
Right.
Yeah, something that just she was really strong. I really appreciated her words on the elders and the water. And she had also mentioned going home too. So in her
Right.
podcast, which was I was like, another one, another person who talked about going home. So really, really cool person. Tina is a doer.
Who do you want to go to next?
I wanted to go to Dar. Oh my gosh, Dar was so fun. Oh, she made me laugh. So I really liked her in the beginning. She talked about her name, like you said, Dar the Star. And then she's all, I wanted to have a Lakota name. She kind of said it like that. She goes, but I got Dar. And it just makes me think, like when you're young, of course you want a cool name like that. You're like, I want like to be like Tara Red Horse or something like that. But I was like, no, I got my last name, which is of course cool too, but like you want one of those cool Indian names that Hollywood like gravitates towards. But she was funny.
Right? I that made me laugh too because she basically is saying like I came into my name. Like I now see the beauty of my name. I am now my name. Like I've always been, but she had to learn to accept and receive that. And I think a lot of us feel that way because I used to always get picked on my last name, old man,
Hmm.
and then my first name. I'm like, really, you guys, there's a whole like library of names, and I land with Vicky. Like, come on, Papa, come on, Mama, right? And my middle name is so long, and I'm like, what is this mix and mosh of names here? But I love that she owned it. She stepped into it, and yeah, it's just a reminder of like receiving the names that we have and really finding meaning to it, right?
Yes, yes. Oh my gosh, yeah. She was so funny when she introduced herself the way she did. But Dar really reminds me of a doer.
Oh,
She's like kind of reminds me of like those the AIM, the American Indian
mhm.
movement, uh, just protesters, and we're gonna fight for our rights, and that's what she reminded me of. She actually reminded me really of a free radical. So I studied biology in undergrad, and of course I had to take a lot of chemistry. And there's these little elements out there that are called free radicals. And all it takes is one little tiny charge to bounce them into the next state of radicalness. And that's her. Like all she needs is one little tiny charge and boom, she's off and she's going to, be out there in space and let everybody know her message. So yeah, she reminded me of a free radical and her energy super high. Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate you naming her radicalness, because when she had said in the conversation, we're fighting over crumbs. And we forget the loaf is ours. She was like getting riled up on the podcast saying, I was upset when they said, we invited you to the table. And she was like, we own the damn table. What the hell are you saying? And we talked about fear. And I think about what is holding us back in a lot of cases. I think of our indigenous communities and how we negotiate and how we are trying to protect things, but also it's just tricky. She just reminded me, and I'm hoping others that listen to that, it's a perspective, it's a shift, it's a belief too that, yeah, we own the table. We deserve the loaf and the whole meal, right? So
Yes.
I just appreciated her passion and her fearlessness and rawness. And she definitely is. And because I worked with her a little bit, and yeah, you can't tell her what to do. She'll be like, nope, I'm not doing it that way. I'm doing it this way. I'm like, okay.
I love that about her. She had mentioned something really interesting about, maybe it goes back to how we don't think we have the right, to say no to, let's say, governmental pressures, not our own government, but outside governments. And she had said that we have been colonized to be afraid. And, that is true. Back in the 1800s, the way was very strategic, that the government was not only trying to kill the Indian and save the man, but by putting us on reservations and making us stay in one place. Very strategic. And I think that it just goes back to the 1800s of when we were being colonized. And we were afraid. I mean, these were all brand new experiences with disease and new languages and kind of putting tribes against each other. It's a whole very historical, I think. She's very historical in all of her sayings. I really appreciated that. It's very hard to talk about that stuff.
It is. It is. Well, Dar, I told her I want to have her come back because she has a lot to say. We didn't even get to talk about some of the other topics. So, all right. The last one we have is my Aunt Claudia.
Mm.
I loved connecting with her, and she's so sweet. I love my aunties, and she's one that is dear and to my heart because I have those moments. She saw me growing up. And anyway, what I appreciated is how she talked about forgiving. And I didn't know about how her relationship was with my Nelly, my grandmother.
Mm.
I didn't know that. Just made me happy to know that she recognized it. She did some healing work around it, and that
Mhm, mhm.
realized, like I can grow from this. And I thought that was so beautiful. It was new for me to hear. And I was like, wow. And again, that just shows you don't know what people are carrying or what they're going through. And also how strong we all are. And that she really just named about forgiving yourself, right? Forgiving yourself and how do you move forward? Hmm.
Yes, I really appreciated her. I think her perspective also on being in a large family. I am not from a large family, and she had said, that she was. I can't remember how many brothers and sisters she did. She say 9? I don't remember. Okay.
I can count them all.
And that the differences between the large family were huge. And she was like, they had maybe this was the older way of how families did it back then, was they had a large family, and you basically, she said, you push the kids out because you have the new ones come in. And something I do see as a theme maybe between my dad's family and what your aunt had said was that some are chosen to do something. Like, you're going to go to school, you're
Hmm.
going to stay here and work, you're going to go, I don't know, somewhere else. Or it was interesting how the grandmothers and grandfathers or their parents chose that for them. And there
Hmm.
was no questioning. They just did it. They're like, okay, I'm going to school and that's what I'm doing. And I'm staying here and I'm taking care of the ranch. That's what I'm doing. So I really thought that was such a different way that people act these days. Nowadays all about choice. No, I'm not going to go to school. I'm going to work. So the more of a, I guess, there's choices now, whereas back then there weren't any choices.
You know, what's interesting about that, as you said that, I thought also about age difference in that when you're younger, now when you are giving the example of people saying, young people like, nope, I'm going to do this. What they don't realize in that moment of time is lived experience. I'm in my mid 50s and I have lived experience enough to give offerings to my children to say, this is what I learned when I was your age. And when we're that age, we're just kind of like, whatever, I know what I'm doing. I do me, boo. Hey.
Oh, so true. You just think that you know, and it's the only way you know that you think you know is you get older and you look back and you're like, oh, I just want to slap myself because I should have listened to my dad. And we have to live our own lives, as I'm sure everybody does. But yes, I agree. I agree with that. I'm also in the same little boat with my son where I want to give him advice, but he's growing into his personality and his voice. So we got to let him grow and
Yep.
and just really be there for them when at all times. So I get what you're saying on that. One of the also things I love that your aunt had said was going back to the land and how she also says about going home, being at home is just like the strong medicine that we all need to get back to. When she said when they were young, they were free on the land. And it's so true. When you go
Right.
home, you're so free. You are in your ancestral where your grandparents grew up and it's for miles. There's nobody around. And you can do whatever you want to do. I mean, you could ride your motorcycle and tear up. I mean, not that people do that, but you could just go anywhere and do anything. You could push rocks down a cliff if you wanted to, and no one will even hear it if you did that. But it's the feeling is something I think is hard to describe of being free on your own reservation, on your own land, knowing that your grandparents grew up on that land, your grandparents grew up on that land is really strong. You can go down that rabbit hole and just be like, wow, that was crazy.
It's so true about the feeling of freedom and clarity. Every time I go back to see my dad, it takes a while for me to settle in because I'm just like, I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to check my email, right? And
Hmm.
once I start to settle in, though, it's quiet. It's almost like
Yes.
meditative being home.
Yes.
Yeah, and I love that you named our grandparents and our great grandparents were there. One time we were all talking about my one of my aunts would say we had I don't know how many she's like 10, 12 kilnatas and the how they
Wow.
dig the hole and she
Yes.
said and I was like, "Oh, that'd be so kind of cool to get like what do they call those things that fly around the top?"
Oh, like a drone?
Yeah, to see if they
Okay.
could see the imprints
Oh,
of where they're located, right? But anyway,
yes. You
digressing
know,
there.
Google Earth probably has a picture, or they basically, I think, mapped the whole Earth, the topography. So you can look at from an aerial view using Google Earth, and I bet you could see them because you can see quite a bit with
Okay,
Google
I'm
Earth.
gonna
But yeah,
do that.
we even look at some places where our cattle might be. It's not live, obviously. They take it from a couple of months back,
Mhm.
but like we can see where our cattle were in some little tiny like canyon where we didn't know there was like trees and water way back there. We're like, wow, I didn't know there was water in that canyon,
Wow.
and there they are. So yeah,
Aw.
pretty cool. But hearing those kinds of stories from your aunts and uncles, and you're like, really? Like, oh my gosh, you guys brought the sheep all the way over here, and they'd say, yeah, we would just camp right here, and we'd stay here like for a couple of days, and we move on to the next camp, and we would do that. Just so cool to hear those older stories like that. And I don't know why they like our aunts and uncles sometimes don't always want to open up about that. I'm not sure.
I don't know. I totally get what you're saying though. And there's only certain relatives that will share and others that choose not to. And so I will just take the ones who will share and then the others okay.
Yes, I agree. But Yeah, we could go on for a long time about auntie stories.
Oh my gosh. Well, we got through them all. I mean,
Wow.
and we just only touched like one or two things from the podcast. There was so much learnings from all of them. And the one question to just sort of wrap up, I want to just ask you, first of all, Ayahat, Chikis, Shadeja. Thank you, my sister, my friend, for being on this journey with me and for listening and being a supporter. And because I know it takes time to listen. And even when you listen as they go, you like for me, I have to go back and listen to it because I'm like, oh, I missed that, you know? And
Mhm.
so I appreciate you taking time to listen. And I really hope that it offers you insight. And so my question is that because you've been a listener and a part of this circle for a while now, what keeps you coming back to these conversations?
Oh, the people. They're so interesting. We're all from different parts of the United States. Of course, we're all native. And, but the stories that you can see the patterns there,
Hmm.
and the stories aren't exactly the same, but they have a lot of similarities. And I love picking out the patterns and the similarities that each of them shares. And also, I love learning about their people. What do their people do? How do they harvest? What issues are they dealing with specifically in their communities? So I think that it just opens your mind and allows you to think, bigger. Like, okay, I'm glad to know that not only, are we the only ones dealing with this issue, but up in Alaska, they have a similar issue as well. And how are there ways that we can find a better way of I guess, helping each other, things like that. So I think that's what it is. And it's just also interesting, Vicki. That's what also what it brings me back.
I love that you said, I love the way you landed about learning from each other, all the different tribes, because that's what it's going to take is understanding and learning from each other, but also how do we come together to help each other as relatives
Yes.
for our community, for our planet. So that was beautiful. And as you always know, I always end with fire round. So I got some fire round questions. So let's see how you respond to these. I'll go easy.
Okay, okay, that sounds
All
good.
right. So first one, coffee, tea, or water by the barn.
Oh gosh. Water by the barn. It's just too hot all the time. So water for sure. Oh, yeah.
One word horses would use to describe you.
Yeah, the la.
You're gonna tell our non-Navajo listeners what yadallah means.
Oh no, here she comes. What is she
That's a
gonna make
good
us
one.
do today?
I love it. Oh, okay. A song that feels like freedom.
A song that feels like freedom. Oh my goodness, this is a good one. I say, oh, I love this song by Neo. It's called Miss Independent. I love
Oh,
that. It's just about being a woman and she can take care of herself and doesn't, I mean, yes, yes, basically being Miss Independent. And I guess that's my freedom song.
snap, 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 snap. A lesson that surprised you this year.
Oh gosh, this is a good one. A lesson that surprised me this year. Oh, it's to believe in myself. Don't doubt yourself. I think that's what it is. I think I was doubting myself and I wasn't opening my eyes. So I think that's the lesson that I had take from 2025. 2025 was a different year. And so I think it probably one of my biggest lesson years in my
Mm,
later part of womanhood. 20s, lots of lessons in your 20s, 30s, you still have some, 40s, you kind of coast, I feel. And then after that, I learned some big lessons this year. So that's probably it.
Mm.
Hmm.
One thing you're learning to let go of.
I am learning to let go of, oh gosh, this is a hard one because you had mentioned how I'm really close to my family, my extended family.
Mhm.
And I give a lot to for the cows and the horses. And I think this past part of the very last part of 2025, I kind of had to just take a break and just for my own health. And not that, I'm unhealthy or anything like that, but my rest, my stress, and it really took a lot out of me. And I think that's something I had to be okay about letting go, is being there all the time, always being the one who's gonna help round up the cows, who's gonna help brand the cows, who's gonna make the decisions on things like vaccination. I'm not saying that I love it, I do, but I needed to step away from it just for a little bit. I'll get back to it. Just step away and to gather myself.
A word you're carrying into 2026.
A word I'm carrying into 2026. I am gonna say, it might be a phrase, but it's probably with the time of my life, is just do it.
Mm.
Mhm.
Just do it.
Yes.
All right, last one. If the ancestors were listening, actually, let me rephrase that. Ancestors are listening right now.
Mhm, mhm.
What would you thank them for?
Oh, I would thank them for everything they've done for us. Oh, everything they've taught us, what they've given to us in our ceremonies, in our language, in our teachings, and fighting, fighting for our sovereign rights. And I think, yes, just thank you. And, that I love them.
Oh, thank you. Take a deep breath, everyone. This was so juicy and yummy. We like digged in. We got to know Tara a little bit and learn about her horse's personalities, and that they when they see her coming, they're saying "Ya de la." So I just want to thank everyone who listens, who comes back, who shares these conversations with your family and your friends. You are the reason why we're doing this. And I want us to go back to what we know and that stories teach us and that there are lessons there. And, we need to spend time to take pause, to listen. And there's a lot happening in this world right now. And it can feel heavy, but I also want to leave with you all to not give up on hope. Hope is not passive. It's really a practice. And so don't forget to pray. And whatever how prayer looks like for you and how you live it, it could just be taking a walk. It could be riding your horse. It could be getting in your old beat up pickup truck and going for a cruise. It could be whatever it is. But I just want to thank you for being a part of this circle. Thank you for listening and walking with us. And this is the first one for 2026. So thank you until next time, Tara, when we see each other. I just want to thank you again for being here.
Oh, yeah, Vicky and Jenny, yes. I appreciate you having me on, and so interesting. And I look forward to your podcasts in 2026.
Beautiful. Thank you, everyone. Take care.